Okay, so hi, Colin.
Hi, Julie.
So just for people who are going to be watching this on my social media, this is my friend Colin, and I asked Colin to do this because I feel like it's so important that what I'm going to show you is out there. And Colin doesn't have social media, do you, Col?
No.
So he can't do this. And so I wanted to do it for him because I genuinely heartfelt belief that this is amazing. So, sorry, Colin, if this is embarrassing you, but I need to say it. This is Colin's book. Colin, is it weird to see it like this, like me holding it up?
Everything's weird about this moment. You, the book, the interview.
It's so funny. I was just saying to Colin, I was like, I feel like I'm like interviewing somebody when like it's just my friend. But so if anyone can't see this, this book is called No Path to Enlightenment. And Colin wrote it. And it is absolutely amazing. I absolutely love this book. So I said to Cole, I wanted to ask him some questions about the book so that he can explain it a little bit before people maybe buy it or have a read of it or borrow mine if you're not too sure whether you want your own copy. Because there's lots of questions. When you see a title like that, I don't know, you wrote it, Colin, so it maybe is different for you, but if I was looking at No Path to Enlightenment, the I before I am, exposing the illusion of yourself, that would intrigue me. I'd go, ooh, and I'd pick it up and have a look. It would intrigue me, but I don't know how many other people it would intrigue, obviously, because I'm not them. So I thought I would start by asking you, what, just a little question, Colin. Why did you write this book? Can you try and give us like just a real overview of what it means, this title, and just a little bit of why you wrote it?
Yeah, I can say how it came about, really. I didn't set out to write the book. I was writing notes around philosophy and psychology for years in scribbled notebooks. And in 2012, New Year's Day, I decided that I had all these notebooks and I wanted to protect them. So I would transfer them onto a digital version and create a Word document on my laptop. And then in doing that, I realized that they would form potentially small essays or even meditations. Then they sort of started to merge together into potentially a book. And so it was born not with a view to write it from square one, but out of my notes in the preceding decade. And then it took me 7 or 8 years of work to get it to a point where I felt it was a book. I got up to about 65,000 words. Then I went through a professional proof edit and a professional proof editor, and it was reduced down to the book you see now, which is about 45,000 words. But the essence of the book is a sort of a personal exploration into trying to answer that question, who am I? Now, this is a question that meaning, purpose, why are we here? The big questions of life that I'd always been struggling with from a young teenager right through my adolescence, early 20s. And I was looking for answers in philosophy, particularly Western philosophy, mixed with a bit of psychology as well. But then when I started putting the book over the last 10, 15 years, it moved more into an Eastern spiritual journey. And it was there that I started to get interested in Advaita Vedanta, which is in the West known as non-duality. And this was intriguing for me because it seemed to suggest there is a deeper, more enduring, essential self to everybody. And that this would be, have different names. Some people have called it pure conscious awareness. And it is the witness, it is a space that witnesses our thoughts rather than becomes our thoughts. And this keyed into a sense, an innate sense I'd had throughout the years, that there was something else going on deep within me. And it wasn't special to me. It seemed to be mirrored in the great teachings, Eastern, Chinese teachings and Indian philosophy. So this book is my attempt at my own personal understanding of this deeper awareness through these esoteric writings. So it's my flavor, if you like. The fact that it's no path to enlightenment rather than here's the path,
yeah.
it's done on purpose, because I don't want to add more to you, to your idea of who you are, like another way of being that might work for you in the world. I want to take away your identity and dip into that unknown beingness that is just open to the present moment, rather than filtering the present moment through your idea of who you are and what you expect to happen.
There's just so much stuff in that. When you say it, it's like there's so many things there. So what I want to do, if this is okay, from what you've just said, then it sounds, when I hear that, and I was lucky enough to hear about this before you even had it in this form that it's in there, it makes me go, oh, this is like everything, this is everything. Because not only does it sound really interesting and really, I don't know, I don't have a word to say what I feel about it really, Carl, but it makes me feel like for people, there's kind of, it gives a sense of hope, I think. Because from what you've just said there, you just said this isn't like particular to me. Like, I'm not this enlightened individual who has this and nobody else does have it. It's within everybody. And your attempt in this book is to give your feelings, thoughts, experiencing of this thing which has multiple names or no name. So what really appealed to me about this when you were explaining it to me and when I've read it is, and I'm going to ask you to say this rather than my understanding of it. So, and I think this is a really key point that'll help a lot of people who maybe will watch this. Okay, so what are our thoughts? What are our thoughts and what do they mean?
Okay, so I think that first of all, let's talk about thoughts, and I'll say it's easier to say what this isn't than to say what it is.
Yeah.
Now, it might seem like I'm dodging the question there, but the essence is unnameable and unknowable. And it's the present moment beingness, this that we're experiencing now, that excitement of not knowing. Like, I don't know what I'm going to say next. No. And that's exciting. It's a freedom to be in the moment, unrestricted, not having an expectation of what I should be saying or a persona that I want to create. I want to make sense, hopefully. But beyond that, it's just seeing what unfolds in the moment. So thoughts are a very strange thing, aren't they? Because, for instance, we don't seem to have control over the thoughts that enter our mind. Cognitive behavioral therapy attempts then to control those thoughts and control the triggers that then fire the emotions, if they're negative emotions that are adversely affecting our life. But psychology aside, the idea that we can control what we think is like trying to stop the tide. It's just not going to happen, is it? I mean, wouldn't it be wonderful if we decided what we would think and what we wouldn't think?
Totally.
So
yeah, and I just wanted to say that for anybody who's ever been in counselling, I said this to you. I remember going for CBT once. I think I had 2 sessions, and they told me I was cured. And after 2 sessions, and I remember this person telling me to imagine my thoughts drifting out of my head and popping like bubbles. And that was an attempt for me to try to control that which was occurring in some way. And I just remember thinking, really? Like, you know, so I think for people listening, to try and, what you just said, to try and, the idea that you can try and control that is like trying to stop, you can't control a tide, can you? You can't do that. You just can't. So for somebody to tell you that you can, and just imagine that, it can feel like really, well, it can feel ridiculous to people. It did to me.
Yes, exactly. Now there are some techniques, and I won't go into these here, for instance, like positive affirmations, where you actually go out of your way to think certain thoughts, to rewrite subconscious scripts. I'm not suggesting that isn't a method to help improve somebody's life in certain behaviors and patterns of thought. But I'm not talking about that. What I'm suggesting here is that the thoughts aren't you. Okay.
I love it. Tell us what you mean. Tell us what you mean. The thoughts aren't you.
So,
the thoughts aren't you.
So, most people identify with the voice in the head. And they don't see a separation between the thoughts and that voice and who they are. And so they are at the mercy of whatever thought arises. I liken it to clouds passing across a blue sky. The clouds are your thoughts, different shapes, grab your attention, they're moving. And most people identify with the cloud and the thought and become that emotion. So the thought becomes an emotion, the two are linked, and you're in a life of anxiety, stress, and uncomfortable feelings that you repeat over and over again. And those thoughts, they were a pathway literally in your mind, in the synapse connections in your brain. They are worn pathways. And most people become those thoughts. It is an identification. And it wouldn't be so bad if those thoughts were happy and positive and life enriching thoughts, but often they're not. Often they are guilt and regret of the past and fear and anxiety of the future. And that produces stress and anxiety. And that becomes embodied and can lead to illness. 90% of illness is stress produced. Now, what I am attempting to point to here is that you aren't the clouds that are passing across that pure blue vista. That sky that holds the clouds is the witness. And that is what I want to try and get the readers to through this book. To be the witness of the thoughts, to see them not as you, but from another perspective.
Yes, I absolutely love that. And can I just, so I want to share something here after reading this. But I mean, you know, after reading this and after talking with Colin, this book says this that Colin's just saying here. It says it in the book in a really easy to understand way. And I remember at one stage saying to you, because Colin was like this wise sage, that I'd go, what about this? What about this, Colin? What happens with this? Or what do you think about this? I'd just ask you loads of questions all the time, wouldn't I? How do you know this?
Yes.
When do you get to this stage? And what about this? And I wanted a bit of what he had. He had this stillness. You had this stillness about you to me. And you seemed, I'll tell you what you seemed so unaffected. That's the word that you seemed to me. And that was really interesting for me to see, because that's not something that I have typically seen in the relations in my life. You know, people in work, in families, and I found it bizarre, didn't I? That you seemed so. I was like, well, where's your reactions? Where's your feelings? Where is all this stuff that's going on? Which is how we kind of got to be friends, really, isn't it? Because I was just continually asking you these questions. And I remember saying to Colin at one point, I can't understand how you can be the witness of your own thoughts, because you are your thoughts, or so I thought before I kind of had a look at this book and other things. And I really struggled to understand that. I really, really did. I thought, I can't get this. Like, I was that person who identified with the voice in my own head. I thought that was me. And again, I went down the psychological route, really, and looked at, well, why am I thinking these things? Why are these thoughts here? What does that say about me? What does that mean? What does that? Whereas now, I almost, and I've said this before when I do my own Facebook lives on my stories and things on my social media, Colin, which doesn't mean anything to you, but I just do live and I just talk on my phone for however long I need to people and whoever wants to listen. And I say it's really interesting. And the honestly, I cannot say this enough, again, heartfelt, the greatest gift that I feel I have in my life now is that for most of the time, because sometimes when events happen, I can slip back, but for most of the time, there's a distance between what goes on in here and the feelings that I have, which makes my life so much easier, because I'm not enveloped or engulfed or entrenched in this consistent voice or thought that might be popping out in my head, and or feelings that I get, that there's a distance between me and that which goes on up there. And I cannot tell you, when you said the freedom, that it's so freeing, because once you kind of really can know on a knowing level that you aren't all of this, it's almost like you can, it's like that, you know, you can breathe.
Yeah.
You just, it is so freeing. And this is why, for me, this is why I wanted to share this, what we're doing now, because I think, like, I want everyone to feel that. I want everyone to have that freedom, you know, within their own lives. So we've talked about thoughts, and thanks so much for that, because I know that so many people struggle with the thoughts in the head, Colin, and, you know, excessive thinking and rumination and consistent dragging them down. So what about feelings then? What about feelings? Where do they come in? Okay. What happens there?
So some people misunderstand this message, that there's like detachment it can be taken the wrong way, like it's a numbness, like you are a coping mechanism. So you have this intellectual idea about thoughts, and therefore you can disconnect from feelings that trouble you, and so you can be Teflon person and not get upset. So this isn't.
I thought about you when I first met you. I was like, this can't be right. Like, this is going to be an act.
Something of what you were saying there is that there is a freedom. So it's the opposite of numbness. It's aliveness. It's being open to whatever happens. Now that could be emotions, frustration, anger, upset, you name it. These don't disappear, but they are short-lived, because, like, take physical pain, for instance. The body we have physical pain, and it's sensible, you know, if you have a migraine and paracetamol works for you, take the paracetamol, you know.
Yeah.
We don't need to be a martyr about facing pain. And the same with emotional pain. You feel it intensely, but it doesn't have the hooks into the story of you that continue it past its sell-by date. So it happens, you're aware of it, but it doesn't have the same ripple effect out into other people's world, because you hold it, feel it, and then the intensity disappears, just like a physical pain would disappear as soon as the stimulus has disappeared and it's gone. You don't keep hold of it psychologically and then feed into the story of, this always happens to me, you know, typical, or I don't trust that person because this happened to me in the past, and that's my story, and this is my filter, and I project what's happened to me and what's hurt me in the past into this specific instance, and that feeds into my sense of who I am. That could be someone who is a victim of circumstance, or I need to be heard more, I've not been heard in the past. So it's back to the freedom of not having a filtered perception of what's happening in the moment. You're not playing off what's happening against the story of you.
Yes.
And you said to me there was a stillness that I had, you know, that you noticed. Okay, so that's what you noticed, but I haven't got it.
Yes.
It's not something that I'm thinking I've got, because as soon as I think I've got it, I'm back to that constricted self with a story of, I've got this. And as soon as you hold on to what you think you've got to protect you against life, then life just shows you that you haven't got that.
Yeah.
By holding a mirror up to you to show you, actually,
yes,
the story of you is in one sense an illusionary psychological picture of what's happened that you carry with you, but it's not the truth of what's happening here and now. What's happening here and now is I'm just sitting on a chair, you know, a breathing, beating heart, a physiological human being in the moment, talking, not quite knowing what's coming up next. When Colin got out of the way, this freedom happened, but it's not something that Colin can be proud of because it's not his.
Yeah. Yes. Now, right. And this is really hard. This is really, really hard, because I think, Colin, that you froze a little bit then, but you came back quite quickly, so it's fine. This is what, when, you know, however many years ago, we were having these conversations, you were trying to, well, I was asking you and you were trying to tell me, this is what I struggled with. And I think other people might struggle with this too. Maybe they won't, maybe it was just me, but just in case they did, you used to say this to me and you'd say, you know, Colin is X or Y or Z, or Colin is, you know, doing these things or has done these things. And I used to be like, well, why are you referring to yourself in the third person? And I couldn't get this. And I think what you're saying, and after reading this book, is that this unnameable source, energy, consciousness, whatever it can be called with words, isn't something that you get, as in added to you. It is something that you are in your essence, that we all are. And if only we can kind of stop the stream of other things that we think we are, then that is what remains.